A man is not born weak, he is worn down, eroded by comfort, distracted by noise, bent by appetites that promise relief and deliver emptiness. Look around, and you will see men who no longer stand upright inside themselves. Their bodies move, but their backbone is gone. Their eyes seek purpose, yet their days dissolve without direction. This is not a crisis of society, it is a collapse of inner command. But what was broken can be reforged. In 7 days, a man can begin again, not by changing the world, but by reclaiming the mind that should have ruled it. Forget everything you have been told about self-improvement. Forget slogans, morning hype, comfort-driven advice, and empty motivation that evaporates by nightfall. Those methods were designed to keep you consuming, not becoming. A man does not rebuild his inner backbone by collecting tips. He rebuilds it by confrontation. The battlefield is not outside. It is the silent moment when no one watches, when desire whispers, when weakness negotiates. This is where most men surrender without a fight. The path ahead is not gentle, it does not flatter, it does not entertain, it strips illusion. It demands an inner oath and a willingness to stand alone before you stand with others. Many will scroll past this point. Spectators always do, but if you are still here, understand this. You are not about to hear advice. You are stepping toward a different identity, one that must be forged, not wished for. A forged mind is not motivation, it is not enthusiasm. It is not a temporary surge that fades the moment comfort calls. A forged mind is an inner command post, a place where impulse does not rule, fear does not vote, and laziness has no seat at the table. Most men live without this command. They drift between urges, moods, distractions, and borrowed identities. They call it freedom. It is not. It is a territory without a ruler. The first law of masculine strength is self-governance. A man must command himself before he can lead anything else. A household, a mission, a legacy. Without self-command, power becomes aggression, intelligence becomes excuse, ambition becomes restless hunger. The forged mind begins when a man establishes an inner oath. Not a promise spoken aloud, not a public declaration, a private law written into his own identity. I will act by principle, not impulse. Discipline is not routine. Routines break. Motivation fades. Discipline is loyalty to the inner oath when the body protests and the mind negotiates. Ancient orders knew this truth. Men were shaped not by information, but by vows carved so deeply they became instinct. Inside every man is a throne. If he does not sit upon it, something else will. Appetite, approval, addiction, fear. The 7-day forging begins with reclaiming that seat. Quietly, deliberately, without applause, like iron cooling after fire. This is the foundation. You are not here to improve yourself. You are here to rule yourself. Everything else follows. A man without honor is a weapon without direction. He may be sharp, but he cuts blindly. Honor is the invisible frame that holds strength in shape. It is what prevents power from turning into chaos. In a time where boundaries dissolve and standards soften, reclaiming honor is an act of rebellion. Not against society, but against the weakness that quietly enters a man when he stops standing for anything. Honor begins with boundaries. A man who cannot say no cannot protect anything. Not his time, not his body, not his future, not the people he claims to care for. Boundary setting is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is the line drawn in the sand that declares, beyond this point, weakness does not pass. This is where masculine respect is born. Not the shallow politeness of empty manners, but the deep recognition of value in oneself and in others. This is why respect toward women is not submission and not conquest. It is discipline. It is the understanding that uncontrolled desire is slavery. A man who commands himself does not objectify. He chooses, he honors, he protects, and because he governs himself, he can be trusted by others. This is the root of stable relationships, loyal partnership, and clean legacy. Brotherhood is the next pillar. A lone man can be strong, but without accountability, he can drift. True brotherhood is not entertainment. It is men sharpening one another through truth, correction, and shared standard. Where honor is personal, brotherhood is collective honor, the refusal to let another man fall into softness unnoticed. Courage is not loudness. It is restraint under pressure, the ability to remain governed when emotion surges. This is how legacy is built, not by impulse, but by a life lived on principle. A forged mind does not chase comfort. It earns dignity. This is your summons. The 60-day discipline and virtue challenge stands as the gate of initiation. Not reading, entering, not theory, action. Step forward, take the oath, begin the forging of your inner command. No applause, no comfort, only transformation. Link pinned in the first comment. A man's mind is either a fortress or an open gate. If it is not guarded, anything enters. Noise, craving, resentment, distraction, doubt. Modern life profits from this invasion. A scattered mind is easy to control. A fortified mind is dangerous to anything that seeks to tame it. This is why the forging of a new self requires one skill above all others: mastery of attention. Attention is the blade of consciousness. Whatever it rests upon grows. If it rests on weakness, weakness strengthens. If it rests on discipline, discipline becomes instinct. Most men surrender their attention without resistance, handing it to screens, impulses, meaningless arguments, endless stimulation. Then they wonder why their will feels thin. A man who does not choose his focus has already chosen his defeat. Silence is the training ground, not empty silence, but deliberate withdrawal from noise. In silence, the mind reveals its habits. In silence, cravings become visible. In silence, a man meets himself without costume. Routine then becomes the hammer. Wake, act, think, and rest by design, not by reaction. Solitude sharpens. Distraction dulls. This is mental fortification, cutting escape routes, removing easy indulgences, reducing excess, standing still when every instinct demands comfort. Each resisted impulse is a stone added to the inner wall. Each completed duty is steel reinforcement. Over days, the fortress rises. Over weeks, it becomes impenetrable. A forged man is not loud, he is solid. Pressure does not break him. Temptation does not own him. Chaos does not recruit him. He remains governed, centered, unmoved. This is the mind you are building. Every man meets fear, not the dramatic kind seen in stories, but the quiet fear that lives in hesitation, the fear of confrontation, the fear of being disliked, the fear of discomfort, the fear of standing alone. This is where most men surrender their principles. They trade their spine for approval. They soften their stance to avoid friction. Over time, this small surrender becomes a way of life. Moral cowardice is not screaming and running. It is silence when truth should be spoken. It is agreement when conscience says no. It is delay when action is required. A forged mind does not seek conflict, but it does not flee from it. It understands that peace without backbone is not peace. It is quiet collapse. Principled action is simple but severe. You do what is right even when it costs you comfort, even when it makes you unpopular, even when no reward follows. This is how a man becomes reliable. This is how trust is built, not through charm, not through performance, but through consistency under pressure. Comfort is the great seducer of modern men. It whispers that tomorrow is soon enough, that softness is harmless, that indulgence is earned. But comfort, unrestrained, is erosion. It rounds the sharp edges of a man until nothing remains that can cut through challenge. Pain, when chosen, refines. Voluntary hardship is fire. It burns excess. It reveals what is essential. It proves to a man that he is not fragile, that he can endure, that he can command himself even when every instinct begs for release. An unshakable identity is not discovered, it is paid for. Across every age, every civilization, every order of men who sought true strength, one image appears again and again: the perfected man. Not perfect in flawlessness, but complete in command. A man whose inner world is aligned, whose word is weight, whose presence settles chaos rather than feeding it. This archetype is not fantasy. It is the destination of discipline carried far enough. When a man walks the path of self-governance long enough, he begins to sense a standard beyond himself, a figure that embodies restraint without weakness, courage without aggression, authority without domination, sacrifice without collapse. Many search for this standard in philosophy, in war, in tradition, in solitude, and eventually every honest seeker arrives at the same silent recognition. There is a prototype of perfected backbone, not as religion, not as institution, but as the final convergence of virtue, strength, restraint, and unbreakable will. Jesus stands in history as that figure, not soft, not passive, not decorative, but a man who did not bend under pressure, did not barter truth for safety, did not surrender principle for popularity. Even men who do not speak his name still trace his outline when they pursue absolute integrity. He is the measure behind the measure, the silent spine behind every code of honor, the final shape every forged man approaches when he carries his oath to its end. This is the resolution of the teaching. The path you walk is not invention, it is remembrance of what a man was always meant to be. The forging of a new mind is not mystical, it is mechanical. It begins with 7 days of deliberate command. Each morning, rise at a fixed hour. No negotiation, no delay. Stand still for 1 minute in silence. This is your daily reminder. You rule yourself first. Each day, perform one act of discomfort by choice. Cold water, physical exertion, withheld indulgence, unfinished convenience. The goal is not suffering. The goal is proof. You are not governed by impulse. Guard your attention. Remove one source of noise that weakens you. Endless scrolling, meaningless debate, habitual distraction. Replace it with one act of focused learning or reflection. Short, precise, daily. Consistency matters more than intensity. At night, review the day without excuse. Where did you obey your oath? Where did you surrender it? Record it, not to shame yourself, but to sharpen awareness. Speak one truth you have been avoiding. Set one boundary you have postponed. Complete one task you have delayed. These are small acts, but they reshape identity. Over 7 days, the mind begins to understand. You are not drifting anymore. This is not a challenge, it is an initiation. Begin today, not when you feel ready. A forged mind is built by starting before readiness appears. There comes a moment in every man's life when he realizes no one is coming to rescue him. No teacher, no system, no trend, no comfort. Only the quiet truth. The condition of his life is the condition of his inner command. If he is ruled by impulse, his world will reflect chaos. If he is ruled by principle, his world will take shape. You have been shown the path, not a fantasy, not an escape, a return to the throne that always belonged to you. The forging does not end after 7 days. It begins there, Each choice from this point forward becomes a strike of the hammer. Each act of discipline becomes a layer of steel. Each refusal to kneel before weakness becomes proof of who you are becoming. Most men will close this video and remain unchanged, not because they are incapable, but because they are unwilling. But a few will rise from this moment with a different posture, slower breath, clearer eyes, a silent oath burning beneath the ribs. Be among them. Stand, rule yourself, and let the world adjust accordingly.